And this is where you come in, I guess, because obviously, yes, you guys sort of have the pedigree and the wherewithal to mount something called the CETA constitutional legal challenge, but it's not cheap.
No.
And more, not just the sort of the financial resources part of this, but as we talked about before, you know, and I guess a great example that recently happened with Standing Rock, when there is enough political risk for somebody, they will then pay attention, and only will they pay attention.
Right, exactly.
So as much as it's important to get involved by, you know, helping financially, spreading the word, you know, spreading these videos, you know, spreading awareness about the website is also key, because this is, we've seen some optimism and some encouraging signs from grassroots movements recently, and that's exactly what the Canadian reformers are, Canadian bank reformers are, as well as the...
We still need thousands and thousands more people to write to the Prime Minister and their member of Parliament and say, social contract, yes, CETA, no. If we got enough thousands of them, maybe the government would capitulate before we got to the Supreme Court. I don't know. But they're certainly not going to unless they get a wave, a tsunami of opposition from the people that causes them to think about their own political future and the risk that they're taking and going ahead when the people are saying no.
And this is not a let's worry about this next year or 2 years. No. The urgency is now, isn't it?
The urgency is now, immediately. And then, of course, we need financing. I don't know what the ultimate cost is going to be, but I would say that including some outside witnesses, which we'll have to bring in at some stage, that it would cost $150,000 or maybe a little more, and that's quite a bit of money.
Well, and I guess the ultimate goal, and I would use the example of sort of the Jim Garrison strategy with you know, the case he did bring to trial around the JFK assassination was essentially not so much trying the people that were accused, but was really to put the entire conspiracy on trial and allow the people to sort of understand more about it and then make their own decision. In this particular case, I'm guessing, in a world where we're pretty sure that most, if you go out and ask 1,000 people on the street, what is CETA and what is it about, maybe one person or two people would even have heard of it or know what it is. So your goal, not only to challenge it in the courts, but use that opportunity to get at the coverage and educate people about exactly what they're getting into.
Exactly, yes.
And I mean, from that standpoint, if you were at a cocktail party and somebody asked you really quickly, why should I care and why should I get involved? What would you tell them?
Because your future's at stake.
And a lot of people say that politically, but in this particular case, you're talking not just about their financial future, you're talking about the sovereignty of a democracy.
The sovereignty of the country and the financial system, which are mingled totally, and the whole range of options of being able to make decisions about whether you're going to have fracking or not, and make decisions about all of the things that are important to people on your health standards, and whether you're going to continue to allow GMOs and whether they're good or whether they're bad and so on. All of these things you're putting on the line if you sign CETA, and you lose your right to govern for the sake of the people and what you think is their real best interest.
It kind of reminds me of the you know, the terms and conditions on websites that we get, you know, and it's probably about 100 pages of legal jargon, and we just have the big thing, agree, because obviously who's going to read it, right? And we're agreeing to stuff we have no idea about. And in this case, I'm guessing...
I've seen the original pile of document from CETA. It was this high. There were, I think, 1,200 pages.
So impossible for anybody, including the politicians who are supporting it, to have even read it.
Absolutely. Amazingly, when they introduced the bill, it mysteriously or magically was reduced to 500 pages.
Oh, right.
So that Mr. Galati has to go back and read everything again to get the right paragraph numbers and so on. But they will not read it before it is signed, before they approve it, that's for sure. And even with the free trade agreement, the minister in charge boasted in his memoirs that he hadn't read it before it was signed.
That's democracy at work, people, right there. Before we let you go, I mean, it's interesting to me whenever we get together to just, hear like 1949 was when you were elected. Like, I mean, it's rare to be able to have the privilege to, be with somebody and exchange ideas and information and learn, who has been able to see, not read about, see so much history, see the cycles, the boom and the bust. So it's one thing to have theories. We could go on the internet and watch a million documentaries and come up with our own ideas as to, why something is the way it is. But you've seen it firsthand over almost 6 decades as a politician.
All of the different cycles and different systems.
And here we sit here today, that young man who felt compelled to run at 25 years old, in a true act of public service, because that's literally what motivated you to run. Are you, as we sit here today, 68 years later, are you optimistic, or are you worried that what you started 68 years ago is never going to see the finish line, or are you starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I'm a congenital optimist, or I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning.
Agreed. Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going. I'm a realist, and that's the reason we launched the action, because you could be optimistic without the action, and you know what's going to happen. It's going to be bad. We launched the action because the realism and the optimism sort of came together and said, realistically, only the courts can save you. The government, the politicians will not save you. They will not save the country. They will not do the best thing for the people. Maybe the courts will. So we'll appeal to the courts because that is our last resort, our last hope. Without it, we're dead ducks. So let's go for it.
So we will appeal to the courts, and we'll also appeal to you. CanadianBankReformers.ca. There's a link there on CETA if you want to stay up for a couple of weeks and read 1,200 pages or so to better understand what we're getting into and what you're getting into, but also a lot of information there, more videos, as well as links to how you can donate, how you can get involved, and how you can be part of a very important grassroots movement that isn't really just about the future. They're always about the future, but in this case, it's about the present. And so on behalf of everybody at CanadianBankReformers.ca, I'd like to thank the Honourable Paul Hellyer, not only for joining us today, but for doing what you've done by really dedicating your entire life to public service.
Thank you very much for your kind words, and thank you for coming.